Hi, if you like the video, please remember to subscribe. Hi, in today's video I'm going to be doing a beginner's guide to the Zoom H1 handy recorder. Because if you want to make your YouTube videos and podcasts sound better and you're on a budget, you can't really go wrong with the Zoom H1. It's a cheap, good quality sound recorder, and it is incredibly versatile for all sorts of situations. You could use it as a standalone recorder, just using the built-in microphones that you can see on the top. You can use the line outs to feed into something like a DSLR or a video recorder. So you're recording from the mics here, from the really good mics here, into the DSLR. You could use the line in for something like a lapel mic, a lav mic, or a different type of mic. You could just mount it on top of a DSLR as a shotgun mic kind of thing, so it's just sitting there and it's recording separately onto its internal memory. Yeah, it's really versatile. It's kind of transformed, I think anyway, the sound in my YouTube videos. Probably not this one, because I'm recording this using my Logitech C920 webcam and using the built-in mic, so it'll be okay, but we'll probably lose sync and things like that. But because of its small size as well, you can almost use it as, if you're using it with a lapel mic, an ATR30, you could use this on somebody, put it in their pocket, mic them up, and it's almost like a wireless system. Now, the reason why we need to use something like the Zoom H1 is often the audio recording capabilities of our DSLRs, our video cameras, or our webcams, they're not very good. They tend to pick up a lot of room noise, you get a lot of echo. You can probably hear this in this video now. Maybe you hear clocks ticking, cars going past, that sort of stuff. And also the amplifiers in things like our DSLRs and our video cameras aren't very good either. So you kind of combined with a poor mic, with a poor preamp, with the fact that the microphone has to be a long way away, because if you want really good audio, you've got to get the mic as close as possible to the source so you don't pick up everything else. It means that this is a really easy, cheap, good option to do. So the Zoom H1 is an amazing device. It's well worth the money. I think it's about $100 in the US, under £100 in the UK. The idea with this beginner's guide is, if you've got a Zoom H1, this will help you maybe use it and give you some ideas how to use it. If you're thinking about buying a Zoom H1 as well, maybe it'll give you some ideas on whether it's the right device for you. But I tell you what, let's turn the camera around and let's have a closer look at the Zoom H1, the functions and the buttons, and some of the accessories as well. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the Zoom H1. As you can see, it's quite a nice small little unit. We've got the power button just on the right hand side, so if you just hold that down, let it slide back, and as you can see it says hello, and then the display tells us how much time we've got left to record. So 1 hour and 35. You can see the levels bouncing up and down on the left hand side where I'm talking, and we're recording at 44 kilohertz 16-bit sound, which is basically sort of CD DVD quality, more than good enough for recording the audio for podcasts and YouTube videos. The big button at the front is to record, and then if we turn around and look at the side, we've got our line in. So if we were going to plug in something like a lav mic, an ATR 3350, we use that. We've got our input levels, so that's how we change the volume, if you like, of the recording. So as we're talking now, as I'm talking now, and you can see the levels bouncing up and down there. What I don't want them to do is to clip, because if they clip, that means it won't sound very nice. So for example, if I see I'm clicking my fingers there, what happens is that's too loud for the mics, and you get a little clipping warning coming on. So what you want to do is you want to just talk, or get your talent to subject to talk away, and you want the bouncers to get around to about, well, -6, -12 dB, something like that, and then you adjust the levels. See, I'm going down now, so that they don't peak, and that will mean you've got a really nice clean audio. What you can do with the Zoom H1, I must admit I don't use it very often, is you can play back recordings you've done through the tiny little speaker. You can record things. There goes the bells going. There's your USB out for either using the Zoom H1 as a webcam, as a USB mic, or for copying files off if you don't want to take the SD card out. If you flick the power button up to there, that sort of disables all the buttons so that you can't accidentally stop recording. On the top of the Zoom H1, we've got our two mics in, I'm probably going to get this wrong, is that the XY format? I'm not sure, but basically it means you get nice stereo sound from those microphones. However, do notice that they are not suspended or isolated in any way from the rest of the body of the recorder, which means that if you're hand holding, if you move your hands around, all that rustling and scratching will be picked up by the mics. Or if you've got the mic, for example, on a tripod on a table, if you're drumming on the table or typing on your keyboard, that sound will be transmitted up through the tripod legs, through the body of the recorder to those mics, so you have to be very, very careful that way. On the left hand side, we've got a line out for our headphones so that we could monitor the output, or again we could run that line out using something like a male-to-male audio cable into something like a DSLR or a video recorder to record the video that way. And then we've got our volume keys to adjust the volume of the output. Behind here is our micro USB. Just pop that off, and then if we press that button there, there's our little micro USB, so we can take that out and copy the files off should we wish. And then if we flip the unit upside down, what we've got there is we've got our low cut filter, so that kind of gets rid of low electric sort of hums, or audio levels, auto levels, sorry, which we always want to off. We always want to set the levels ourselves so we don't get clipping. That gives us nice sound. And our recording format, which either can be WAV, which is basically uncompressed, or MP3. With modern computers and drives and micro SD cards, there isn't really a reason to record in the compressed format, unless I guess if you're using the Zoom H1 for long periods of time, away from your ability to download the files. So in that case, maybe you would record an MP3, but I always record in WAV that way. And then, if we take the back off, what you can see there is we've got one single AA battery which powers the unit. Nice and simple. I just put Duracells in there, or alkaline batteries, and that works very, very well, and it lasts for quite a while. So what we'll do next is we'll look at a few accessories that you could possibly get with the Zoom H1 that can make it a little bit more usable, and then we'll look at the basic settings. So this is the Zoom H1 accessory pack that you can buy as part of a bundle sometimes with the Zoom H1. If you buy it separately, the accessory pack is, I think, too expensive, and most of the stuff in there you don't end up using. But in the UK, when I bought my Zoom H1, for about another £10 you got the Zoom H1 with the accessory pack, which made it kind of worthwhile. So the accessories that I use all the time, so let me just turn my Zoom H1 off so I'm not wasting the battery. I use the hard case. Really useful this, because the Zoom H1 is a budget device. It's very plasticky. If you drop it, it is going to break. So this little hard case, it sits in there, keeps it nice and protected. Happy days, especially in storage when it's in my camera bag or something like that. So that's very useful, comes in very handy, use that all the time. The next thing that I use that comes in the accessory pack is the windsock. I haven't really done any tests about how effective this particular kind of windsock is. It makes me feel better that I'm using it, and I guess it may cut out some wind noise and some plosives, the p's and the t's and the s's when I'm talking. I guess if you're using it as an interview device, this would probably make the microphone look more like a microphone, so people would know what you're sticking in their face. But I use that all the time, very useful. And finally, the bit that comes in the accessory pack that I use is the mini tripod. When I'm recording my videos for YouTube or my audio podcasts, I basically fix this onto here, and I just kind of set it up sort of like that, and then I do my recording. And this is quite a good little tripod, actually. I mean, you can get these for not very much money on eBay. In fact, if you've got a digital camera, somebody at some point has probably bought you a Christmas present of a digital camera accessory kit, which normally comes with like cleaning cloths and one of these little micro tripods, which are pretty useless for video cameras and stills cameras, but are pretty damn good for the Zoom H1. So that's kind of the accessories that you'll use an awful lot. Actually, there is one other. this is a useful accessory that I got from eBay that you'll see a little bit later in the video, which is a hot shoe adapter, which converts the hot shoe on your camera to be able to take a tripod mount. And of course, on the bottom of the Zoom H1, we've got a tripod. Be very careful with this tripod mount because it is just plastic. So if with a metal thread on here, if you do it up too tight, there's a chance you could strip it, and you wouldn't be very happy indeed. Always protect the Zoom H1. Always treat it with respect and care, because as I said, it is made to a budget. It does record beautiful audio, but you don't want to be dropping it too many times. So let's take a look at the basic settings that you put in the Zoom H1 to record audio for your YouTube videos or your podcasts. Okay, so let's look at the basic settings that you'll probably be using all of the time when you're recording with the Zoom H1. First up, let's look at the back of the device, and going down from the top, it might be a bit difficult to see in the video, but we have our low cut filter which we put on, and that will cut out sort of low level electronic noise from things like air conditioners, dishwashers, that sort of stuff. Auto levels off. We're going to choose the level that our microphone records at, and that enables us to not only achieve a better sounding audio, but it makes it a lot easier in post-processing to sort things out. And our recording format, for me, always in WAV, never in MP3. With modern micro SD cards, I think I've got a 32GB one in this recorder, which gives me an awful lot of time to record. In fact, no, it's a 16GB, I think. I've got an hour and 35 minutes worth of recording to do, even though there's stuff on there already, so that's great. So I never record an MP3. Now, if we go on to look at the front of the camera, what you can see here basically, see if I can turn to get the light to come on, it might be easier. So what I tend to use is 44 kilohertz sound at 16 bits, because that's kind of CD, DVD quality, is perfectly good enough for what I do. Now to change that, all you do is, if you see on the side of the device, we've got these arrows here. So if I just press these arrows, you may just be able to see it changing. It's gone to 4816, 4824, 96 16-bit, 96 16-bit, 96 24-bit, and what you'll see is the amount of time I've got to record goes down significantly if you're recording at these incredibly high bit rates. And then we're back to 44 kilohertz 16, which is the normal one I use, which is, as I said, is more than good enough. And that's it really. Once you've set that, you're good to go. Before you do your recording, obviously you want to check your levels. Like at the moment, I'm probably running a little bit hot. I wouldn't set this high because you can see the recording peak light keeps popping on, and my bars are really getting up right there. So what I would then do is I would take the input levels and I would just turn them down, say something like 80. So I'm kind of peaking around about -6, -12, which means that I'll get a nice clean audio that I can work on in post-processing, and it will sound very, very nice indeed. And that's it. That's all you really got to remember. And just try and remember again that whenever you turn your Zoom H1 on to do some recording, just double check you're recording at 44 kilohertz, 16 bits. On the back you've got your low cut filter on, your auto levels off, and you record forming it as WAV, and you've got enough time to record the audio for the particular video or podcast that you're doing. So there we go, very easy, and let's crack on with the next bit of the video. Let's talk about using the Zoom H1 to record something like a podcast or the audio for a YouTube video or something like that. So we're going to take our Zoom H1 and we're going to put it on a little tripod. This is the one from the Zoom accessory kit, which you don't have to buy. In the UK, when I bought mine, they were doing a kind of a discount bundle deal where if you bought the Zoom H1 with the accessory kit, it only cost you £10, so that was quite good. So we're going to mount it on a tripod, basically so we can sit it somewhere, so I don't have to touch it to introduce handling noise. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to turn it on. It says hi. Just check the settings on the bottom. So I've got the low cut on to hopefully cut out any room noise or things like air conditioners. Not that we've got an air conditioner, but maybe washing machine that is on. I've got the auto levels off, so I'm going to set the levels manually so it doesn't go up and down. And I'm recording to WAV format. And then all I do is then just look at the front and I just make sure that I'm recording 44 kilohertz 16-bit sound, because that's kind of CD quality. It's good enough for podcasts and YouTube videos. I'm just going to quickly check that I've got enough recording time on there. So this one says 1 hour 35 minutes, more than enough for any of the videos or podcasts I do. And then really what you've got to check then is your levels. So as we're talking into the mic here, I can kind of look down and I can see the bars bouncing up and down. And also if I've got really loud, say if I snap my fingers, you can see the little red light coming on, and that's warning me that I'm clipping. So my volume level is too loud and it's getting to the top, and it can't record any detail. A bit like if you're into photography and you take a picture of something that's very, very bright, like the sun. You don't see any details in the sun. So, you know, you would change your exposure. Well, I don't recommend you take any photos of the sun. Let's choose something else. With clouds, and if it's very, very bright and you overexpose it, you don't see any details. They're all gone. Well, it's a bit like that when your levels are too high for the particular audio source. So it clips. It sounds awful. So all you do is you go to the input levels and you just turn it down so that you want it just to be peaking. I would say just around about the -12 mark. And then once you're set there, you're good to go. You set your mic up somewhere where it can just sit there and there won't be any noise from you typing on keyboards or drumming your fingers on the table. Or also, the ideal position for recording really for things like podcasts and audio is you don't want to be here, because the problem with being here with this type of mic is all the plosives, the noises of you sort of breathing and talking, and the puzz and the tuzz and stuff really blow down into the mic. I mean, it helps if you use a windsock, sort of, a little bit, but you'll pick them up. Ideally, you really want it somewhere up here, or you'll see, when you see people on the radio, they'll often have a mic and it will kind of be here, so they're just picking up the sound and not all the breath sounds. But for me, I just pop it down about here, just below, so you can't see it on the videos, or off to one side, and then I just you hit the red button and you start recording, chat away, and then when you're finished, hit the red button again. If you're going to be using the audio for a video, often it can help if at the beginning you start the video camera recording, the webcam recording, start the Zoom H1 recording, and then just do some clicks or something like that, so that that helps the software that you're going to use to sync the audio track and the video track up in post-processing. But also if you've got to do it manually, which sometimes you have to do if the sync software can't do it, that will help you as well, because when you look at the waveforms, you'll see these spikes in the audio from the video and the audio from the Zoom H1, and you can just join them up, line them up, and it makes it very, very easy indeed. So that's how simple it is to use and record audio for podcasts and audio for video using the Zoom H1. What we'll see as part of the video as well is I'm going to go into how you do the post-processing as well. But for now, what we'll do next is we'll look at maybe what to think about if you're recording handheld. Now the Zoom H1 is really versatile, so you could use it as a handheld mic as well. Let's imagine we're sort of outside, perhaps maybe doing a recording. And again, you'd go through the basics. You turn it on, 44 kHz, 16-bit sound. Look at the back, low cut is on, auto levels is off. Recording format is in WAV. We don't need to compress anything, do we? But if you are using the mic handheld, so like this, like a piece to camera, say you're outside and it's a bit windy and a bit noisy, you want to get the mic very close. The tricky thing can be to check the levels. So this is a situation where really you should be plugging, if you can, a microphone an earpiece into the line out, so you can listen to what the sound sounds like and you're not picking up extraneous sounds like car doors slammings or the wind noise and things like that. And the way that you can reduce things like wind noise is you get the mic as close as you can to you and then turn the levels down so that the relative balance of the volume of your voice to any other voices changes. Imagine if the mic's a long way away, you have to set the levels quite high to pick your voice up in comparison with, say, the wind. But if you get it very, very close, your voice is a lot louder compared to the wind, so that works very well. The thing to remember though is that the mics on the Zoom H1 aren't isolated, they're not suspended in any way, they're hard, I guess they're glued probably onto the body of the recorder, so that any noises of you scratching your hands around or moving your hands around will be transmitted straight to the microphone. So it's very important to keep your hands, once you've started it recording, keep them very, very still. Don't move your fingers around, don't slide them up and down. And then, and if you're going backwards and forwards from you to your talent or an interviewee, something like that, again, try and keep your hands as still as possible. And if you just follow those simple guides, you find you can get some really great audio, and it's a really fast pieces to camera, so that's really an excellent way of recording video in often quite difficult situations. So let's have a look at using the Zoom H1 with the lav mic. In this case, this is the Audio Technica ATR 3350, I think this one. Yeah, ATR 3350. Really cheap lav mic, and a really cheap way of basically getting a microphone very, very close on yourself or on your talent if you're recording stuff. And again, it almost gives you a way of having a wireless mic system for very little money at all, because again, you're recording the audio separately. Now, the ATR 3350 has a massive lead. Sometimes it puts me off using it, but all you've got to do is take the line in of the lead, plug it into the line in of the Zoom H1. Now, normally you'd snake the wire up into underneath your clothes, obviously, but for the sake of the video, I'll just clip it on here. Now, the reason why that lav mics work so well is because the microphone is incredibly close to the audio source, which is me, and so things like room noise and echo, you don't really hear them. Now, the ATR 3350 isn't that high quality. Now, I wouldn't use it for an audio podcast simply because it just doesn't sound good enough. However, when you're using it for things like YouTube videos, it's perfect, it's great, it's no problem at all. And it means, for example, a couple of times I've been out and about on the top of hills on windy days, and I take the ATR 3350 lav mic, fix it into the Zoom H1 and record the audio with the video being recorded by my little GoPro clone, the SJ Cam SJ4000, and you get really good audio, because audio is probably the most important thing in videos, because we can put up with funny colours and low resolutions in terms of what the video looks like, but the audio, we need to be able to hear it, don't we? So what you do is you plug it into the Zoom H1, and all you really did you hear the bells? What you're really going to be doing is just adjusting the levels. So let's turn the ATR on like that. And then all I do is I just talk, and the good thing about this is the fact that I can be talking and I can just look at the levels on my Zoom H1 and see them. And now I tend to find that when you're using the ATR 3350 or any, I guess probably most lav mics, you need to turn the levels up. I tend to go up to something like 86, 87, sometimes up to 90, depending on where the lav mic is. And once you're set up again, this would be another really good case of if you were recording in a professional situation or a semi-professional situation, where it would be really nice to have an earpiece just to monitor the audio, so you can check you're not picking up any interference, any clothes rustling, all that sort of stuff. But just check your levels are okay, check you're not peaking. That's the awful thing. Remember, if you go too loud, you probably see the little red light flashing on there. But as I say, with the ATR 3350 lav mic, around about 90, between 90 and 97 is okay. And then you can hit record, and you can put this in your pocket or in your jacket. Remember, with the Zoom H1 you can flick the power button up to hold as well, so you don't actually turn it off. And then there we go, and then you've got virtually a wireless system. Really simple. Obviously, if this was inside my jumper you wouldn't be able to see it very well, but that's how easy it is to use the Zoom H1 with a lav mic, and it's a really great, cheap, simple setup. Let's take a look at using the Zoom H1 with a DSLR. So to kind of do this, obviously you've got your DSLR, you've got a Zoom H1, and then you're going to need one of these little devices. This is a hot shoe adapter, hot shoe to tripod adapter. You can find them on eBay for not very much money at all. And basically what you can do, that slides onto your hot shoe like so. Then you have a little knurled bit that you roll down to lock it in place. And then you can take your Zoom H1. Actually, it's probably going to do is put the adapter onto the Zoom H1 first. You can put that onto there, turn the knurled bit back up again, and you can mount it like that. Now, this only really works for tripod work, because if you're hand holding, your Zoom H1 can hit you in the eye if you're trying to look through there. I guess you'd be taking video anyway, so you'd be looking at the screen, so you'd be holding it like that. But be aware of that. Once I was out trying to take pictures and video at the same time, so it was like an air show of airplanes flying past, so I was trying to video, so I was videoing like this with the Zoom H1 on to pick up the sound better, and then I was going to take stills, but obviously I kept whacking myself in the head, so that didn't work. So with this kind of setup here, what we're doing is we're recording the video and the audio separately. So you would just set the camera up, start the camera recording, press recorder on the Zoom H1, do a bit of a click track so that you can sync them easily afterwards if you have to, and then just record away. What can be quite tricky is the levels for the Zoom H1 if you're working by yourself, because if you're doing a piece to camera, for example, and you know, the Zoom H1's over here on a tripod a few more feet away, you can't see the levels on the top. So that can be very difficult to kind of guess, and basically you do just have to guess, or have some sort of monitoring solution, which again can be an earpiece, headphones with a wire. But again, if you kind of set it to sort of 85 to 90 when it's over there, you're probably going to be okay in a quiet situation. If you're outside, it can be a different matter altogether. So the next kind of thing that you can do that kind of makes this easier for using this sort of setup, because remember, this is on the camera in kind of what we would call a shotgun mic setup. So the idea is that it's picking up the sound that's in front of the camera. However, the Zoom H1 is not a shotgun mic, so it will pick up lots of different sounds. So it's not ideal for this situation, especially outside. So you want to be using a windsock or be in a very quiet situation. What can make this a little bit easier actually is if you don't record it separately, but actually record the audio from the Zoom H1 into your DSLR. And to do that, you'll need one of these. This is just a male audio jack, and it'll vary depending on your camera, but on my 600D, whoops, not underneath that flap, underneath this flap here, there's audio in. So I can plug that into the mic there, and I can plug that into the line out there. And you don't have to get a cable that's quite as long as this. You can buy ones that are really quite short. And the beauty of doing this is that if your camera like the 600D has a pop-out screen, what you can now do is you can, when you're in the video recorder mode, like so, you can go into the menu and you can look at the sound recording, and you can monitor the levels. So we can go to manual levels, which is good. And if I had the Zoom H1 on, which would help, wouldn't it? Let's just turn it on. There we go. So now it's actually recording, and you can probably, I don't know, you might be able to. Can you see that level going up and down? There we go. Now it's peaking terribly because it's going all the way up to the top. So what I would do is I would turn the line out down on there, or, and now this is the trick for really good for recording good audio on your DS. If you're recording straight to the DSLR, is you turn the recording level right down. So you're trying to bypass the preamps in the camera, so that you actually get a nice clean sound that way. So we turn the preamps down. Now the reason why I'm kind of mentioning the screen is because obviously if the camera's away from me on a tripod or something, I can still see these levels bouncing around, so I can adjust the levels so that it works okay. So that kind of gives you a good way of using the Zoom H1 on top of the camera, either like a shotgun mic, but remember it's not a shotgun mic, it will pick up lots of different things from all around the environment you're in. And you can also use it with a direct line in to record the audio from the Zoom H1 and record it onto the video track that your DSLR is recording on, and then just monitor those levels so they're good to go as well. Now in this video you've heard me talking quite a few times about monitoring the quality of the audio you're taking. Now with a DSLR, when we're taking video, if we're behind the camera, you know, we can just look at the screen and we can make sure we're recording what we're meant to be recording. It can be a bit tricky to test focus, but we get a good idea that the camera's actually recording stuff. And even if we're recording to camera, if we've got a screen that can flip round, you can do it like that. So I can do a piece to camera and I can still see my screen there. So again, I can check that things are happening. But with the audio, you're working blind a lot of the time. And this means that things like background noises, aeroplanes flying over, the hum of an air conditioner, you won't notice it. You won't notice until it's too late, until you get home. Now, when I'm recording videos for YouTube and stuff like that, if the sound isn't that great, it doesn't really matter that much, does it? I mean, you've probably seen on this video already. There's probably been some stutters and out of sync audio bits because I'm recording with my webcam rather than my DSLR, because my webcam's got An okay mic with a DSLR wouldn't sound very good at all. But this is where monitoring comes in. So if you're recording anything professionally or that's very, very serious, where it's very important that you get the correct audio, you have to monitor. And the Zoom H1 makes this very easy indeed. So all you've got to do is obviously turn it on. You set all your levels, to what you think they might be. And then all you do is you just plug a headset or an earpiece into the line out. And then just listen and hear what you're getting. And then you can adjust your input level. Now you can adjust the output volume as well of the headphones, so you don't want them whacked up all the way, because you don't want them to start clipping when you go out that way. So you want them sort of round about sort of 82 to 85 depending on where you are, and then you can listen to what you're doing. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to show you quite a cool little solution that you might want to try. And I've done a video about this already on YouTube, so you might have already seen it if you've searched. But basically this is a little Bluetooth transmitter, and these are Bluetooth headphones. And so what I can do is I can just turn my Bluetooth transmitter on like so, and I plug my Bluetooth transmitter into the line out of my Zoom H1. I've already paired these up previously, so I can turn my headphones on like this. So they're now on. And so now what happens is, when I'm actually talking into the microphone, I can hear the sound through my headphones. So if I stop talking and listen, I can hear everything else that the microphone's picking up very, very well. So I can hear the sound of my fingers running around. If this was attached to the 3350 lav mic, and that was on myself or the talent, if they were rustling or if they kept fiddling with their clothes, I could pick that up and then address it straight away. If there was some sort of weird EM interference coming through, then again I could hear that, because it's amazing the things that we can filter out, if you like, from our ears, because we've been hearing them for a long time, especially things like washing machines or air conditioning things, that kind of electronic hum we get in everyday life, that the microphones on our lav mics or our Zoom H1s or any recorder will pick up. And it's only really if you monitor and you listen very, very closely, you go, wait a minute, I can hear the dishwasher on. Let's go and turn it off. Let's go and close that door. Or maybe you can hear some traffic noise outside. Right? Let's close that window. Or if you're outside, you might go, oh no, the wind noise is really bad. So let's just turn around a little bit so we've got our backs to the wind, so the microphones are shielded, and it can make all the difference in the world. Because you can't go back, can you? If you're recording a wedding or an interview with somebody, you can't go back and record it again. You need to get it right first time, and the best way to do that is make sure you monitor your audio before the real serious business starts. So once we've done all our recording and we're ready to start editing, you can get your recordings off the Zoom H1 in a couple of ways. You can simply plug a sort of mini USB or micro USB into the side and plug it into the side of your computer and wait for it to pop up, and you can copy the files across. Or you can undo this little flap here on the side, which I must admit is a little bit fiddly to get open, but once you get it open, he says it's funny, whenever you go to do a video, there we go, so the little flap comes open, and then I can take my little micro SD card out and I plug that into an adapter, which I always keep this micro USB adapter in my laptop in the card reader, because it's what I use. That goes into there, and I can plug that into my computer. I can copy the files across, and then we're ready to do some post-processing. So what we've got here is a typical file from my Zoom H1 that I've recorded. This was for a video, but I just wanted to show you how you would or how you could edit the audio. As you can see, we've got stereo. So when I'm going to edit for audio and video, there's a couple of things I do differently. So first off, let's just have a look how I would edit for, say, a podcast. So what I would do is I would look at the waveform that you can see here. And normally with the podcast, I wouldn't have my sync marks there, so kind of just ignore those. But if this was a podcast, I would just be going through, and what I'm looking for on podcasts really is ultimate audio quality. And by that, what I mean is that I'm not going to really play around with the audio that much, but what I am trying to do is get rid of things like pops. So if I was to play this little bit of video here, See if you might be able to hear this. See, there's a bit of a snap. Now that might be me snapping my fingers, or it could be a plosive. I'm not quite sure. But what I will do is I will go into Effects, and I will go into Amplify, and I'll go to -6. I'm just going to get rid of. I'm just going to reduce the noise of that particular thing. Now, if we go a little bit further up, we can see here these spikes. Now, these spikes that really are, they're straight up and down. These are indicative of like t's and t's and me smacking my lips together to my mouth's a little bit dry. This sort of sound, this like that. And they don't sound very good on a podcast at all. And what I'll do with those is I'll make sure I'm zoomed in, and I just grab the selection tool, and if I just quickly play one, you might be able to hear that. Just me like smacking my lips together on my tongue or my palate or something. I just delete them. And they're always easy to see because they're straight up and down. I'm not saying anything in these. It's literally a mouth noise that I do not want in a podcast. And so for my podcast, what I do is I'll go through and I'll look for all of these things and I'll try and get rid of all of them. And as I say, if there's any sort of really loud bits, I use the Amplify tool just to get rid of the really loud bits. You see how easy they are to see, these spikes. You can just delete, just get rid of them. So it's not me talking, it's just me, just various mouth noises. Let's see if there's another loud bit that's worth getting rid of. When you have these spikes, isn't there? And if you're not sure, again, you just select them and just play it. Nope. So that's good. We would go through. And then if there's any loud bits, I would de-amplify them. And then what I do is at the end, for a podcast, I then select the whole thing. So I go Edit, Select All. Did I mention the fact that I'm in Audacity? So this is Audacity, the free audio editing software, superb piece of software, very easy to use. But I'll select everything, and I go to Effect, and I go to Normalize, and then you say OK. And what that does, it in effect, it's kind of like an amplify, and that it raises the waveform up to make it more of a full waveform kind of thing. But it's not being too extreme. You probably didn't see much there at all. The reason why you didn't see anything really happening was because it can't amplify these bits, these sync bits. And then what I'll do for a podcast, remember this is a podcast, I'll just File, Export, and I'll export it as a WAV, that you can see there. And that's it. What I'll then do is I'll then save that, so I'll export it, I'll upload it to the web, and I'll publish that as my podcast. Because what I'm looking for is just the ultimate kind of not fiddled around with too much noise, because when you listen to music through headphones or a podcast or something like that, it's very easy to hear sounds that especially when you're playing around with amplification in terms of levels, you can kind of hear the artifacts. So I try and keep my podcast pretty pure. Now let's talk about editing for video, which is slightly different. Now if I'm editing for video, what I will do is I don't do any of that business going through and getting through the pops and the t's and the plosives. I just don't bother because I don't have enough time. The only thing I do is I reduce noise first. And to do that, all I do is I select a quiet bit of the video, which I normally have right at the beginning. I say Effect, Noise Removal, Get Noise Profile. Then I just go Edit, Select All, and I go Effect, Noise Removal. OK, I have all the sliders in the middle, and that's just going to get rid of all the noise. Now this tool here is too broad for an audio podcast. If I remove the noise like this, the audio podcast sounds a bit odd, but it's OK for video. So I remove all the noise, like so. You'll see the waveform kind of go a lot smoother, and it looks a lot better, doesn't it? When you physically look at the waveform, you think, oh, there's no noise there, but it does also take some of the edge away from the audio, I think, because you're getting rid of all the background noise. It just doesn't sound as good as I think for a podcast. If you do that for video, it's fine. And then what I do is I then file and I export it as a WAV, like that. And then I do something special. And that's when I bring in a different program. And the program I bring in is called the Lavalier 2. It's a really excellent program, Levelator 2, and just look it up on the internet. Levelator 2 from the Conversations Network. And all you then do is you just take your audio, your WAV file that you've saved, and you just drop it into the Levelator. And what it does is it goes through the file and amplifies all the quieter bits and quietens all the loud bits. And it works its way through. Let me just stop that because I've got one that I've prepared here already. And so remember what the WAV file looked like on the file we were just looking at. Now let's look at this. This is a audio file that's been worked on by the Levelator. So I removed the noise, and then I put it through the Levelator to kind of for it to do its business. And you'll see, look how full the waveform is. It's as if someone's gone through. Well, as I was recording the audio and we're riding the levels. So if I was getting a little bit quieter like this, they would have been pumping up the levels, and if I was getting too loud, they would have been taking it down. It's very good. However, it's a little bit too broad for audio podcasts. It makes them sound a little bit odd, but for videos it's fine. So there we go. That's how I edit my audio in Audacity, the free audio editing software for podcasts and for videos. Very easy to do. And what we'll look at next is how I then sync them up using in Premiere Pro. Okay, so we've got Premiere Pro open here. This is a great example of how good Premiere Pro is and why it's worth investing in, or at least worth investing in Adobe's Creative Cloud offerings. So I've opened up my little template with my titles on. So all you got to do now is we go into our audio and let's just grab a file that's been worked on by myself in Audacity, where I've removed the noise and then I've ran it through the Levelator. All I have to do is drop it into my bin here with all my goodies in. I'm just going to get the video file, which I believe is this one. Drop that into the resources bin, or whatever you call it, the project bin. And this is the most amazing thing. This is all I have to do. I click that, control click that, and then I right click back on the video and I say create multi-camera source sequence. Video clip name multicam, track channel 2, that's from the stereo tracks. And then you just say OK. And what it's doing, it's taking the audio track that I recorded on my Zoom H1, looking at the audio track that was recorded with the video that was taken by my DSLR, and just syncing them together and making the audio of the video track the Zoom H1 track. There we go. It's created a movie multicam. So just move that over there, and then magically you'll find that. So quite simply, exposure is how it's all synced up, and instead of having the poorer audio from my DSLR on the video, I've got the better audio from the Zoom H1. And with Premiere Pro, it's that easy. How fantastic is that? Now, you can do this with Windows Movie Maker and other programs, but you have to do it manually. If you do have problems, you can do this manually as well. Basically, you go to Settings and go to Expand All Tracks, so you can see the waveforms, and you just drag the other waveform in. But I would say if you're serious about making lots of videos for YouTube, and you're going to be doing this sort of thing where you're recording your video and audio separately, invest in Premiere Pro. It really is a fantastic piece of software and speeds up your workflow considerably. So hopefully in this video I've showed you how useful the Zoom H1 can be in all sorts of situations for recording audio for videos for YouTube or for podcasts. If you've got a Zoom H1, I hope it's been helpful in learning how to use it. The basics, that is, anyway, to kind of get you started. And if you're thinking about getting a Zoom H1, I've showed you how it can be used and how it might well fit in with your particular workflow. I haven't gone into using the Zoom H1 as a USB microphone, but you could do that as well. So for example, in this particular video, I'm recording the video aspect of it with my Zoom H1 with the built-in microphones. But what I could do is, if I wasn't doing the video of the Zoom H1 and could use it, I could simply, instead of recording things kind of separately and syncing them up afterwards, I could plug a USB lead into the side of the Zoom H1, into my laptop or my computer, and then it would act as a USB mic, and I could record it all together. The good thing about recording things separately is that if there's some sync problems, you can sort that out. Whereas if it's in one video file, it can be quite difficult to take the video and audio apart. But don't worry about that for now. So if you're thinking about getting a separate audio recorder because you want to improve the audio quality of your podcasts or your videos, then I don't think you can go far wrong with the Zoom H1. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments down below. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video. I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.